here's a quick question for Fairy Month. What if the Fairy type was never added? I mean, they added it in Gen 6, that's pretty late. Well, for one, either Dragon would still be a super powerful type, or they would have nerfed it in some other way. After all, that's why they added it to begin with. Dragon needed a nerf. But the main question here isn't about balancing, it's about what the Fairy type Pokemon would be if not Fairy type. And obviously the old Pokemon they just added the Fairy type to would go back to being their old typing, so we won't bother covering those. But as for all the rest of them, what would they be? Sad. Sad is the answer, because then we wouldn't have this whole month dedicated to Fairy Pokemon. And even sadder, we wouldn't have this awesome limited time Fairy Gnoggin t-shirt design that you can only get this month before it's gone forever. Just look how cute and juxtaposed it is. Noggin.net. Support the channel. Anyway, on with the Mon. Let's get the easy ones done first. Flabebe, Floette, and Florges would be Grass type. Many people already wonder why they're Mono Fairy instead of Grass Fairy already. They learn more Grass type moves than Fairy moves even. But I guess that has to do with the fact that they tend to flowers and gardens, but aren't flowers themselves. Like, take a look at Conkeldurr. Conkeldurr isn't rock or ground type because it carries around concrete. Farfetch'd isn't grass type because it carries around a leek. So why would these Pokemon be grass type because they carry around flowers? Though parts of them, especially Florges, do look quite plant-like. Which is why, if Fairy didn't exist, they would probably be grass type for sure. Maybe normal grass to change it up, and also to show that they themselves aren't plants. They just have plant powers. Same goes for Comfey, mono grass or grass normal, for the same reasons. Spritzee, Aromatisse, Swirlix, and Slurpuff would likely all be mono normal. I mean, their whole thing is that they smell good, and they smell good. You could argue flying for Spritzee and Aromatisse since they've got bird faces, but Aromatisse doesn't really fly. And these faces are more references to the bird masks worn by plague doctors, as they would be filled with nice-smelling herbs and flowers, because they thought that would protect them from the plague. It did not. Also, funnily enough, Slurpuff also learns just as many grass moves as it does fairy moves, but other than that, it's not so grassy, so mono normal for sure. Dedenne, I always forget, is fairy type. Like, why? That'll be a fun one to explain in the Fairy type explained video. Well, it would be mono-electric, like most of the Pikachus. Carbink would likely be mono-rock, even though it learns psychic moves, as that way it would further differentiate it from Diancie, who's special, and would be rock psychic, like most of the legendaries of its status, psychic. But you add a rock, because it's made of rock. Plus it learns more psychic moves than Fairy already, and by a lot. 1 fairy move versus 5 psychic moves. The heck? Klefki would be mono steel. Maybe steel normal? Maybe to weaken it down a bit. It's not super steely. It has like a friendlier, softer, fun vibe, which doesn't super fit mono steel. To me anyway. So swapping fairy to normal would reference that and make more sense. To me anyway. Primarina. Mono water, just because it's a starter, and no starters have the normal type yet, unless you count Eevee. Though I could see Primarina getting normal, just so that it has a stab bonus with all the sound-based moves it learns, since it's a singer and all. Cutiefly and Rabombi, bug flying for obvious reasons. Morolo, mono grass, but Shiinotic grass ghost. It learns a surprising number of ghost-type moves, plus its whole thing is that it glows in the night and can be spooky. Its Pokedex entries mention that the forests it lives in are a treacherous place to enter at night, and that people are confused by all of the strange lights they cause, and the people get lost, never to be seen again. It also puts people and Pokemon to sleep, and siphons off their vitality. That all sounds very ghostly to me. Mimikyu. Mimikyu has options, swapping the fairy type for dark or normal. After all, while Mimikyu is a ghost, it's covering itself in everyday, normal materials. It's trying to act as if it were a normal Pokemon and not a ghost. Plus, Mono Ghost just doesn't really feel right when you compare it to the other Ghost types. And also, it learns a load of normal moves. But Ghost Dark would work as well. The Dark type, of course, being the evil type in Japan. Makes it fit well. This Pokemon is filled with malice and jealousy, and it mercilessly seeks revenge and uses dark, dirty tactics such as disguising itself and overwhelming its opponents with shock and horror. So that works. Magearna, Mono Steel. It's an automaton, a rock with a soul stored into it and then attached to gears. I mean, its fairy type reasoning was already a bit weak anyway. Fairy magic is what attached its soul to the stone, I guess. So it's got fairy type signature move, and that's about it. Impidimp, who I absolutely love. Mono Dark. Maybe Dark Normal, just to bland it out a bit. We don't know much about it yet, so just thought I'd mention it. Now, the 4 Tapus are interesting. They all have the fairy type because they are nature deities, and the fairy type can be explained as light nature magic. So in removing the fairy type, you sort of remove what they are. And since they are a set, that makes things a bit trickier too. Having nature magic powers, you could swap fairy for grass? You know, nature powers, plant growth, grass, but then Tapu Bulu is mono grass. How unfair. Maybe swap fairy for psychic, as that's sort of magic and lighty, but then Tapu Lele is mono psychic. Though I guess there's nothing wrong with one of them being a monotype. I mean, Tornadus is mono-flying, where the other two in its trio get second types. Then again, I guess they could be monotyped. They are the embodiment of those types after all. But considering their theming, the fairy type truly works for these guys. You can't really remove fairy from them. And the same goes for Xerneas, a magical tree of life and Fey-esque light magic. It's hard to remove its fairy typing. But if you had to, grass psychic, or mono psychic, I suppose, because we don't have enough psychic type legendaries, which leaves us with Sylveon. Oh, Sylveon. If the fairy type didn't exist, neither would this Pokemon really. And if you watched my video about there never being another Eevee evolution, then you would definitely understand what I mean by that. You could say psychic, but there's already a psychic type Eevee. I remember when they released Sylveon, which was before they announced the new type, most people guessed that it was either flying or normal type, or a new type that hadn't been revealed yet. And I guess I could see those, especially since the name references the fairy, Sylph, who is the fairy of wind. So while Sylveon may not be able to fly, you could see its ribbons as its sort of whiskers. Yeah, you deserved that. Yeah, you could see its ribbons as sort of whiskers, sort of floating in the air, being one with the wind and the air around it, feeling it flow, perhaps allowing it to magically float, or perhaps just allowing it to move the air around it, deal air attacks, which more often than not are flying type. Air Cutter, Aeroblast, Defog, Gust, you get the idea. So if fairy type was never added and they still came up with Sylveon for whatever reason, it would be the flying type evolution of Eevee. And with that, we're done. Besides Alola forms and Megas, I suppose. But those are easy. Alolan Ninetales would be Mono Ice, and Mega Audino, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Altaria, Mega Mawile would just be their old previous forms. Easy stuff. Just like this video. Simple, fun, what-if scenarios. What are your thoughts? Got better ideas than me? Let me know down below, and until next time, pre-order this Fairy Month t-shirt, because once these are done, once the pre-orders are done, it's gone. Never to be shipped out again. So use your noggin and buy them.